Kane Roberts has returned to the guitar spot, and Alice Cooper's band, replacing a departing Nita Strauss. I don't know how long she's going to be gone from the band, if it's just a temporary thing. She's with Demi Lovato's group right now, which could be a pay increase. I mean, I'm sure Alice pays well, but Demi Lovato's more of a mainstream kind of concern. So maybe there's a little bit more money there than Alice. Who knows? I don't know. Could be anything. Alice's band members tend to come and go. Sometimes they return and they'll leave to do other stuff. He's launched a lot of people too into bigger scenarios, as we'll touch on here as we talk about Kane Roberts returning. Kane was the guitar player when I first started getting into Alice Cooper in the mid-'80s. I had, in the early 80s, I got the heavy metal bug. A few years later, the punk rock bug, but metal was really first. And I'd heard of him. I knew some of his bigger songs, like from, you know, classic rock. Well, it wasn't really classic rock back then, but, you know, 18 and No One Missed a Nice Guy, things like that. But he came back with an album called Constrictor. Was released in '86. It was the first record he had made since 1983. And the early 80s for Alice, like starting with, well, from 80 to 83, he released a series of albums, one a year, that were just increasingly more experimental. There was like from punk, new wave, to more art rock. It was all over the place. He claims that he doesn't remember making those albums. They had a brief conversation with him about them, which I'll get to at some point. But he kind of, when he came back to recording in '86, after taking some time off to beat an addiction, he was having a substance abuse addiction with drugs and alcohol. So he was gone for a couple years. His actual real comeback to music, getting his foot back in the water, was a song and video from Twisted Sister from their 1985 album Come Out and Play. They had this song called Be Cruel to Your School. The track itself was sort of like almost like a 50s kind of rock throwback. It featured Clarence Clemens on sax, Billy Joel on piano, Brian Seltzer on guitar. It was like an all-star type thing. A couple other people too were in it. And he did vocals on it. It was like a duet type of thing. And the video was really wild. It was very over the top. Tom Savini, who was a horror effects guy known for his zombie work, created a whole video where Alice and his sister became zombies. And it was a really cool video for the time, but MTV wouldn't play it because they felt there was too much gore there. So it ended up not really being a showcase for Alice's return at all. He then signed to, well, around the same time, he signed a deal with MCA Records, who was one of the absolute worst record labels. The Musicians Cemetery Association, I used to refer to it as. A term that became a little bit popular among my friends, and they did variations on it. But he signed with them, and instead of going back to his sort of experimental work, or even his early 70s garage rock, or the theatrical mid-70s stuff, he decided to try to keep pace with the current crop of hard rock bands and shock rock bands and stuff like that, Wasp and Motley Crue, and there are all these kind of groups. So I think he saw an in there, and that's kind of the direction he went. On guitar was Kane Roberts, who had a great look. He looked, I mean, you know, obviously Rambo, and this is the 80s when Rambo was like a cultural thing at the time. And he had the machine gun guitar that shot off flares in concert. Great look. The album Constrictor, which is the first one he released post semi-retirement break in the mid-'80s, was produced by Beau Hill, producer of Rat, as well as a couple other bands. And it was done, I think, right after he did Invasion of Your Privacy by Rat. And it sonically has all the same hallmarks, including background vocals that sound exactly alike the Rat album, because it's Beau Hill singing background. Listen to a song like You're in Love, you know, with the take the evening one on one, those really high backgrounds. That's all over Constrictor, because it's him, it's Beau singing them. So the ingredients were there, and there's some good songwriting on it, but Alice he wasn't back up to full strength. But it was still, his stuff is, for any kind of genre he's doing, is usually a step up from any other band in the same genre in terms of quality. I think his new wave stuff was much better than a lot of new wave bands. His pseudo-punk sort of Flush the Fashion album that came out in '80. Roy Thomas Baker produced that one, but I don't want to get back, you know, hold the thought on that for now. That's another day. So Constrictor was aimed at getting in step with the current popular pop metal market. I mean, that thing sounded sonically just like a Rat album. The lead-off cut on that record, Teenage Frankenstein, was originally a duet with Dee Snider. It was supposed to be like he sang on the Twisted, and then Dee was singing on his album. Well, I think because of the downturning in Twisted's fortunes that very same year, they really fell off because they made a few critical mistakes. And I think it probably wasn't, for him coming back, I don't think it would have been cool to have Dee Snider singing on that song with him. So it turned from a duet into just a straight up Alice song. Teenage Frankenstein, the opener on the album, like I said, that's the one that stuck around in set lists longer than others. And in the show, he'd always do like some kind of magic trick with this Frankenstein. Yeah, I saw him on Constrictor. It was the first time I saw him, with, of course, Kane on guitar, Randy Piper from Wasp on guitar, Kip Winger and Paul Taylor from Winger playing bass and keyboards respectively, Ken Mary on drums, who was in Fifth Angel and later House of Lords, great drummer. Just a really good band. And the show was like unlike anything I'd seen before. It's half rock concert, half magic show. He does these kind of tricks, or him with his staff, or the other participants of the production. It's almost like a play and a magic show and a concert. Really cool. Almost every song he'd have some kind of thing he would do, whether it was like a magic thing, or and when I say magic, I mean more like, you know how those guys bring out the girls and they cut them in half, and then they push them in two different separate pieces. There's a lot of stuff like that, a lot of trick boxes. Of course, he gets killed at the end, which I believe he still does at his shows. A lot of violence toward women during those gigs, which is kind of weird to look at now. I mean, if you watch any Cooper live show from '87 or '88, yeah, it's pretty crazy what they used to do. In this case, it was like a whip, an S&M girl with a whip comes out during Goes to Hell, which was an older Alice song, and she starts trying to beat him with the whip. He gets away from her and just beats her. It wouldn't fly today, especially during Only Women Bleed, where he would murder a girl and then sing to her. On the Constrictor tour, it was like a nurse, and on the following tour for Raise Your Fist and Yell, it was like a prostitute. Now, along with the sound, he was kind of wise to tap into the '80s fascination with horror movie and slasher kind of movies. And And that's kind of what they did. You know, the show was sort of centered around that. It was very horror-inspired, very bloody. The first thing he actually came back with, as far as the video, was He's Back, the Man Behind the Mask, which works on a few levels, obviously. It was a theme from Friday the 13th, part whatever. And actually went to #1 in Sweden. Didn't really register high anywhere else, but it was really big over there. But it became a song that was popular. MTV used to play the shit out of that video. It was a great video. Had scenes from the film, the Friday the 13th movie. Really cool. So the rest of that album, Constrictor, from which that song was on, was, I like it more now than I did at the time. It wasn't bad, it was just kind of generic. Lyrically, though, he's always a step above, I think. And he certainly, lyrically, it was a bit more interesting than a lot of other bands that do that kind of music at that time. In particular, Rat would be a good example. I love Rat, but, you know. And songs like Civil Disobedience, Throw My Gorilla, just really interesting lyrical ideas. Really cool, I thought. But the production did it no favors, and the songs were like, a lot of them for me anyway, when you listen to them, it's like, oh, this is cool, this is great. But then once it's over, you really don't come back to it. With time, I appreciate it much more. Now I throw on Constrictor, and every cut, it's like, oh yeah, this is a good one. Oh yeah, this is a good one. There were definitely some attempts at commerciality. A song like Crawling or Trick Bag are have a lot of pop melodies, and they're in that 3.5 minute or 3 minute time. And then their darker songs. The World Needs Guts is a great tune from that era. He brought that back quite a few times, and even in recent years, it appeared on, I think, 1 or 2 of the live albums from recent years. There's so many, he puts out so many live albums, but you know what, that's great. I'll listen to everyone and I'll take them. Same thing with Maiden. People complain about Maiden in their live albums. It's like, no, I will take everyone you want to give me. So I remember seeing him, and it was just so great. I'd never seen a show like that before. Vinnie Vincent opened with, he only did like 3 songs. There was some kind of story he had about his gear was stolen from somewhere or something, which was kind of weird because they had giant pink Laney amps on stage, so I don't know where they ended up getting the pink Laney amps, but or maybe something else was stolen, but whatever the case, he only did 3 songs. It's too bad, but the Alice show is unbelievable. It's called The Nightmare Returns, the Nightmare Returns tour. Sold out everywhere it went. Reviews were great. There was a live video, VHS, that came out not long after, documenting the show, one of the shows. I think by that point, Randy Piper had been replaced in the band. He left the band for, I don't know why, but I forget who he was replaced by. Another guy that kind of looked like him, which is kind of weird because people are like, oh, it's Randy Piper. It's like, no, it's not. Some other guy. But, excuse me, Kane's style was definitely 80s shred. And he fucking shreds on all that stuff. The following album, after Constrictor, which Kane was on as well, Raise Your Fist and Yell, was, I think, I used to say it was clearly the better album, but I as I've gotten older, I enjoy the cheesiness of Constrictor, but I still think artistically and sound-wise, the Michael Wagner production on Raise Your Fist and Yell is much better and more suited to the kind of horror thing they were going for at the time. Yes, I do. Hold on a second. I have too many pockets is what I have. Do you have a lighter? You have a lighter? I got one. Nice. Have a good day. Go look like a model. That wasn't why I gave it to her. Usually if people ask me, I do. But, wow. See a lot of them around here. But, yeah, so that was more in line with what they were kind of going for as far as a horror thing. And the show itself for that tour, I didn't see it, but a couple friends of mine did. And it was way more brutal. You can, as far as stage blood and stuff like that. Again, there's some shows, some bootlegs online on YouTube from the 1987-88 tour, which was the Raise Your Fist and Yell one. You know, they're not great quality, but it's good enough where you can see the show. You can see what was happening. And it was a lot more bloody. So he smartly was tapping into that sort of 80s slasher film gore thing that was popular in the mid 80s, and Kane was there for all that stuff. You know, the albums were good and stuff, but the thing, they weren't selling a lot of copies. That's the whole thing. So they had a change up. Like by the next album, Kane was gone, and he got who did he get to play guitar? Guy Man Dude, a couple other people. It was like an all-star kind of cast for an album called Trash, which came out in '89, which was his return to chart status. I had a friend that wrote a song on it. He actually wrote Trash. My friend Mark, who I was in a band with briefly called Digger. It was the only platinum album he had in his house. And it's just a funny thought when I think about sitting at his kitchen chopping up onions in this kind of really dirtbag hangout, you know, beer cans everywhere, and over the kitchen table you got the Trash platinum album looking down. I also met Amy Mann at that house, because Amy Mann was taking bass lessons from his roommate, and I don't think she liked me because I was always asking her about Rush, with whom she had did a song with, Time Stands Still, which was kind of a hit for them in '87. She did a video with them too. So I was always asking about that. Let her borrow my car once. She was nice, but I don't think, you know, I think she looked at us as a bunch of degenerates. She wasn't doing any onions. She was just there to take the bass lessons, and I think she looked at us like these guys are scumbags, which we kind of were. But anyway, all that aside, Trash brought him back to mainstream prominence. He had a hit single with the song Poison, yada yada yada. So Kane was gone for that. I don't know. I mean, there was a label change. I think Shep, Alice's manager, saw that they were having a great response live, and that everything seemed to be going well, except they weren't selling records. And to that end, they put an all-star team together behind him. Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora. He also had Kip Winger, who had already launched Winger at that point, came back to do some work on there. Joan Jett wrote a song, House of Fire. It was just like a all hands on deck kind of thing. Diane Warren, Desmond Child, all the names of the day, and they pushed that album into the charts. It did really well for him, brought him back. Unfortunately, by the time he established himself again as a mainstream rock chart concern, rock music changed. And by the time his next album came out, Hey Stupid, which came out in, I believe, 1991, the winds of change were a-blowing, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. But those two albums with Kane on them hold a special place in my heart. They're cool. They're really good. Like I said, I enjoy them both more now than I did back then. Now, I don't know what his playing is sort of like now. I did hear his last solo album, which was really good, actually. It reminded me a bit of Dragontown, Brutal Planet kind of era Alice. Alice sings on it, too. But I didn't hear a lot of shred on that. I don't know if that's even what he still does. When he left Alice originally, he works himself with some songwriters. I believe maybe even Diane Warren or Desmond Child or both himself. And he ended up having a top 40 single. Doesn't Anybody Fall in Love Anymore, I think was the name of it, or Doesn't Anyone Fall in Love Anymore? And he had a solo album, which is pretty good, but then he was just kind of out of the spotlight for a while. Until he put this last album out is when I realized that he was still making music. And it's a pretty good album. I didn't listen to it a lot. I listened to it a couple of times. Like, wow, this is almost like Brutal Planet type style stuff. So, glad to have Kane back. Hopefully they'll record something together. That'd be interesting to see where that goes. I liked the last album, the Detroit one. I just liked it. I mean, I don't have that kind of affinity for the Detroit thing. I like bands from there, of course, like Iggy and the Stooges, but I'm not really a Seeger guy, kind of a Nugent guy, kind of. Not really a big MC5 guy. I like them, you know, but I don't have that, like, interest in the Detroit sound of the Detroit scene that I think helps to make that album a lot more interesting. It's good to see he had the old band come back to do a track. Not always, but the past couple albums he had them come back. They were on Nightmare 2, they were on Paranormal, and they did probably the best song on the new Detroit Stories album. This is the one he does with the old guys. What a weird situation that was. I don't want to let this go too long, but, you know, there's only like 12 of you watching it, so I think you can hang in there. The situation with him going solo in 1975 was so bizarre, and I don't think we've had another sort of situation like this in popular rock music before. The situation being that he, the name of the band was Alice Cooper. It was registered as that. All the trademarks were set up that way. And what the hell's going on in my back pocket? Did my cigarettes fall out of my pack? They did. That's not good. That's not good. But anyway, his name was also in the band, Alice Cooper. So when he left the band, because they were having a sort of argument over direction, and I think Alice proved himself to be right. Like when he wanted to keep going in the more theatrical kind of direction, the band didn't want to do that. They thought it was getting too out of hand. And to that end, they got Aerosmith producer Jack Douglas to make what was at their time their latest album before the breakup, 1974's Muscle of Love, which was a more bare bones affair. And it was the album right after $1 Billion Babies, which was this Bob Ezrin produced, really giant, kind of over the top, theatrical sort of thing with pianos and all kinds of studio effects and stuff. So they went from that to a bare bones kind of situation that almost sounds like what Jack did for Aerosmith on Get Your Wings, which is great for Aerosmith Get Your Wings. And it would have maybe even been good for Alice if they hadn't already progressed down this more over-the-top kind of Beatles-esque, Queen-esque kind of production, which they were doing. So Muscle of Love felt like a step back. And on top of it, the songs just weren't as good. They weren't very commercial, outside of probably Teenage Lament, which was kind of like an acoustic kind of number, like almost like a campfire song. I don't know what the fuck you'd call that. But so it didn't work, and it was a step down in sales and in critical acclaim from the upward trajectory they were on. Alice wanted to stay on that. He wanted to go bigger, get more theatrical, more lavish studio productions. So when he struck out to do that on his own for Welcome to a Nightmare, it was a huge success, critically and commercially. It was a big album, and that was more theatrical than $1 Billion Babies. It was more over the top. It was more studio wizardry. Bob Ezrin was back. So I think he proved that that's the way they should have moved. Unfortunately, I think what was originally intended was he was going to do that one solo album, which was on Atlantic. Alice Cooper was signed to Warner Brothers. And this is where it brings up that whole strange situation. Like, his name was Alice Cooper. He's putting out a solo album as Alice Cooper. But to the record-buying public, especially in the days when, I mean, the only information you had was just, like, magazines, you know, magazines and radio. I mean, there really wasn't even any music on television, not much back there, that consistently anyway. So, I mean, that's all you had. So you didn't really know. So you just see the album come out, and it says Alice Cooper on it. He's on the front, which doesn't really mean anything, you know. And it just looks like another Alice Cooper band album. You have no reason to think otherwise. And for most people, unless you were like a hardcore fan, I don't think you even realized that that change was made. Now, if I'm Dennis Dunaway, what does that mean for me? Like, like, let me put it in a way. Okay, well, I don't know what example to use. I was just trying to think of a big band. I was going to go with BTS, but I don't know any of the names. But it's almost like a guy in BTS. Maybe the B guy. Nice name. Maybe him, maybe someone like him in the band is also named BTS. They go and do a solo album on a different label, under a different deal, using their name. That's fucking weird. You know, like, how does that work? And I think they were pretty close. They were all high school friends from the same town. You know, so maybe there wasn't any kind of contentious stuff there. I'd be interested to see what kind of legal precedent that some kind of thing might set there. Like, how do you do, like, how does that go? You know? It reminds me a bit about Ghost, like the band Ghost, when they were fired. You know, the former, he was a guitar player. He's got a band, Priest, now. They're like a dark synthwave band. He was talking about how, you know, at one moment, he's in the top echelon of the music business. He's doing these tours with Maiden and Metallica and getting all this good treatment and everything as a member of Ghost. And then when he gets fired, that's it. He can't use his name to parlay it into anything else. He's just some guy again. So it's kind of like that. Now, the remaining members of Alice Cooper changed their name to Billion Dollar Babies, which is something we would see bands in later years featuring former members do, where they take the name of a popular record that they'd made during their tenure. And it didn't go anywhere. It wasn't that good, though. Which, I don't know, it makes you think it's like I think they needed him more than he needed them. Because Muscle of Love, the record kind of they wanted to make, was a much lesser record than any other thing they had that Alice was more in control of. And then Alice on his own was fantastic for a little while. He fell off a little bit. But, so the Billion Dollar Babies album, which was called Battle Axe, it didn't do anything. And that had to suck. I mean, I don't know what... Do you need to get in, man?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll let you in. Hold on.
Oh, you're the best.
Oh, no problem, man.
Thank you so much.
Hey, little doggies.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, okay, so your light is on your phone?
What is it? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, your light. The light.
Oh, is it? Oh, shit, thanks, man. I didn't know that. Oh, people must have been hating me walking around like this going, beep. Thanks, man. Yeah, I had the light on the phone. Wow, I didn't know that. Let me turn it off. Oh, I know what it is. It's the camera. Okay, I turned it off. Wow, I wonder how long I had that going. I move quick, though. Like, I move around fast, so I don't really have time for people to get upset about it. Because I'm usually sticking and moving like Sugar Ray Leonard. Because you have to, you know. So that didn't work out for those guys. Like, I mean, Glenn Buxton, Dennis Dunaway, like, they were kind of left in the lurch, you know, to work all those years to build up to I mean, they were mainstream, very mainstream in the U.S. and in the U.K., around the world. And then he goes solo and kind of takes the name with him because that was his name. What an odd situation. And I can't think of another one in the music business that was like that. And I wonder if there was any sort of litigation back then. I probably should have looked before I started talking about it. I don't think there was, because they were friends. They were like friends since they were kids, since they were in high school. So I don't think there was. You need to get in, man? You need to get in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Oh,
Take your time, man.
Make sure it's the right address, 2426.
No, this is 2420 or 2421. I don't even know my own home. No, this isn't 6. It's definitely not 6. 6 would be,
That's 8 right there.
yeah, this is 2421, right? It's 2421, so 6 would probably be over that side, right? Is that how that works?
So that's 8.
Huh. I don't know. So you don't need to get in then?
Yeah.
All right, man. Good luck with that, man. So yeah, it was a strange situation for them. And now that I've mentioned it, I want to go looking. I'm going to go look it up after I'm done with this. But yeah, I'm glad Kane's back. It's good to see him come back. I've always liked him. Curious to what they do. Like as far as music, musically, I wonder how that's all going to pan out. I don't know. We shall see. And it's nice to talk about something other than the clown world for change. Different kind of clown world, Alice Cooper. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school. School's out.